Well, we're starting to put this thing together. There's our funnel part of the Cyclone, and there's the top we've made to go in the other part. Here's our kind of our temporary thing that held all this thing together while we've been working on it. And then we've made our barrel to go on top of the funnel. Uh, it's been quite the ordeal getting it all to work and getting it all to fit. We've been welding and cutting and fixing, and we got it put together. But there's down inside of it. Here's one. We get it set up best we can, and that's a pretty tight fit to get all that to working, fitting just right. You have to kind of hit it a little bit, and we've got stiffeners on the inside of this, the barrel part of this thing, because the metal, it's kind of, without the stiffeners it'd be pretty flimsy. And Juan is working on, what we have to do. We got a little bit of crack, you weld a little bit and fill up the hole, which is what you have to do on stuff like this. And of course, when you do this much welding and putting it together, then you got to grind it all down and do the best we can do to make it look best we can. We're not really that particular, but it'll be good and tight, airtight, and that's what we're after. Now, after that, we've been 2 or 3 weeks making on this thing. We got some surface rust on the new metal, so we're cleaning it off, and then we're kind of concerned about what's going on. It's rusting on the inside of this thing, so we had to beat and bang and straighten up where it was put together and weld it back and clean up on the inside and wire brush it and try to get a coat of paint on it so it doesn't rust on the inside. And also, you'll notice we got a little 500-pound hoist and lift that we use, and I use it for painting as much as I do for anything. Our projects we make, we can raise it up down. Real handy. And as we move along, I decided I'm going to clean up some of these wells and edges and rough stuff. I've got a little Bondo, and there's part of the old chimenea that we had to fill in, which was a pretty good task in itself to get that to fit right. But we got it all back together. Little Bondo, just like I said, we'll Bondo it, sand it down, and then put a coat of paint on it. And also, I felt like using the Bondo and all these cracks and crevices and seams would seal this thing up good. I didn't want any leaks. And the Bondo, I think, would do a better job in the long run than the caulk. We used a lot of caulk in some of the other places, but I did use the Bondo right here, and it worked out pretty well. I'm happy with it. Well, this was a lot of fun, sticking your head up in this funnel. I put some primer on the inside of this thing just in the spot where the Bondo and stuff. And I seen a Bondo the seams on the inside as well, just to seal it up good. But I figured out right quick, I had Dust Mask right there. All I had to do was go get them. But when I came out of there, I decided, you know what? I better get a dust mask. There's a dust mask on. I was a little bit high. Well, we just sanding off some of the Bondo, and I don't claim to be a body man by any stretch of the imagination, but I have painted a few old cars trucks over the years, and just enough to learn how to do a little bit of this rough Bondo work. So we sealed it up, sanded some of the stuff off, and which took quite a bit of doing. So anyhow, I got it all sanded off good enough. It's not perfect by no means. Didn't intend to be. But we just wipe it down, see what we can do about getting a coat of primer on it. And I have air paint guns, actually professional guns, where I painted these old trucks and tractors and stuff over the years. But a little project like this, it's more trouble to clean up the mess than it is to just get a couple of cans of spray paint and put it on, and this will work just fine. Like I say, it's not the best paint in the world just because it is a spray can, but seems to do pretty good for what we're dealing with. So that's why I didn't get all my garbage out and paint it with the professional gun. Here it is the next day, all painted and dried up. We let it hang there overnight and dry. Bondo set up real good. I didn't get any video, but I just decided I'm just going to paint it silver. So we had to put a coat of paint on it. There's the top we made, and then here's the top for the barrel. Just painted it a little bit different color, and got in here and started thinking about how we're going to put this thing together.
Put it out here, then I'll flip that one around. Put it out here. All right.
At this point, we decided, well, I guess we're going to start thinking about putting it together. I could better put a coat of enamel paint on the inside. So we sanded it off. It had roughed up from the primer a little bit. We sanded it off a little bit and put a coat of enamel paint on it. So trying to make it as slick on the inside as we could to make it work hopefully a little bit better. So we got it cleaned up and put a little bit of paint on the inside of it. And I decided, I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but I decided I wanted to put a slate glass in the barrel, so maybe I could tell when it's full. Probably do something different at the end of the day, but nonetheless, I stuck this thing in there, put a piece of plexiglass and sealed it up good, caulked it, and put a sandwiched it with another piece of plastic on the inside. We'll see how that works. Probably won't, but we'll just have to see how it goes. This is where I took another piece of plastic and sandwiched it, put the plexiglass in between the barrel and this piece of, just for some support on that plexiglass. And actually, I put a piece of 1/8 inch plexiglass in there, and when I put the bolts through it, it busted it. So I had a piece of 1/4 inch plexiglass that I had to wind up putting in front of the heater and getting hot and bending it to the radius of that barrel. But anyway, it worked out pretty good. Now right here, after we painted everything, we put the top on this thing for the first time and got all the supports. That's where we got the supports out when we painted it, but this is the first time we put the top back on it, bolted back on it. I did not caulk the inside because I felt like never would get it apart if I needed to, but when I put it together, I caulked it real good on the outside, and I think it'll hold together pretty good. At this stage, we're starting to frame it up, and we took it out of the construction jig that we'd made to hold it. Used the same two pieces of plyboard where the holes were cut in it, but we made a frame, set those in it, and then we're going to do a kind of a superstructure around the outside of it, elevate it up so it can be elevated over top of the barrel, and be able to remove the barrel, with the sawdust in it. But this turned out to be quite the deal to try to get it squared and straight. At this stage, it's just all freestanding there. So it was quite the deal, but we got it. I think we got it pretty straight. It sits up good. At this stage, we're decided to make a superstructure, if you will, to set over top of the barrel. And we had quite a bit of measuring to do. We want the barrel to slide in and out, of course. We left this open in the front so the barrel could slide in and out. I'm going to put the barrel on a little cart on wheels so we can move it. We put leveling legs and adjusters on the bottom of this thing. The funnel's going to set up at the top where we're welding now. It's coming together. Now there it is, roughed in, setting over top of the barrel. We wanted to make sure it would fit before we go any farther. So, and of course, once we do this, then we got to think about we got to get cross braces in the legs, and so we decided to do it, cross them up like this, and it's substantial. It's fine. Just quite a few pieces to cut and make it all fit, but it worked out pretty good. Well, we got it put together. Now it's time to put a little coat of paint on this thing. And if you know anything about painting with a spray can, there's a lot of sides, ends, places that you can't see, you can't get to. I'm sure I get this thing out in the daylight and it'll look like it's not even painted, but we're trying to keep it from rusting. This is some paint that's supposedly paint and primer together. It'll be fine, I think, for what we're doing for now. We'll see how it goes. Hell, this thing might not even work. We don't know. We still don't know at this stage. We're hoping it'll work. I think it will. But anyway, we just keep going. And there again is my little lift. I'm telling you, we use that thing more just for painting or stuff that we build. We use it a lot, and that's about all it's good for. It's just a little 500-pound lift, but I got it at an auction for almost nothing and hooked it up to a light socket. It works just fine. But we also, thinking about doing all this stuff, it's raining in this area right now. Has rained off and on for 2 weeks. We're excavators by trade and farm a little bit. We do a little bit of everything. But we've got a shop, so this is just kind of projects we get into, when in bad weather. So sometimes we can work quite a bit on a project like this if it rains for a week, and then sometimes it might be a week before we get back to it. If we get busy and can actually make a living. This is just play stuff anyway, but we have fun. We enjoy trying to see if we can make something like this and make it work. And that's just what Juan and I like to do. And also, as you can see, I had to get a light out so I could see a little something, but on a little project like this with these little flat pieces, you go to painting. I put 4 cans of paint on this thing, and I'm sure over 2 of them wound up on the floor and in the air, wherever, painted everything else in the shop. But just a lot of paint wasted, but there you go, that's just part of it.
Well, here we go. Juan and I have worked our butts off on this thing. As you can see, it barely, it did a little taller than I thought it was gonna be. It's stuck in here. This is all temporary. It's so tall, we're gonna have to set it outside. Yeah, we realize that. We're temporaried it in here. This is our first turn it on and see what happens. We dumped a little sawdust here in the floor from the sawmill before. Juan's gonna plug it in and let's see what we got. There go one.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, at this stage, I know this is nothing to people who do this all the time and got these big high price vacuums, but I am absolutely tickled and elated to watch this thing work. First time we've turned it on since we put it together, and we're just absolutely tickled. And I'm also glad I put this clear piece of hose. It's just temporary, but you can see what's going on. That pile of dust right there was about a 50-pound bag of dust threw out on the floor. And it might not look like it, but it's 6-8 inches tall right about where he's getting ready to get to. But it's going right up to that pipe. Looks good.
See it going through the hose. Can't tell anything about this. I want to put a light on the inside of that. Just got this wide open. Must be doing pretty good on the back of the funnel. There's nothing coming out that I can see. Nothing. Just cleaning up the floor now, leaves and stuff. I guess I could put a bag over the end of that just to see from catching it here. We sucked up that bit of sawdust on the floor. Juan, take her. This is how we're gonna take it loose. Sorry we don't have too much lights in here right now. But just all you gotta do is loosen those 2 clamps. Drop that down. Slide the barrel out. Then we'll take it to wherever we're going to dump it. There's our little bit of sawdust. And I didn't see, I'm sure there was some coming out that at the top, but our, yeah, there we go. You got to find one, sounds like. That was sawed, that was the dust off of one log that we sawed, one piece of log. So I don't know, we're not gonna saw a whole lot anyway. That barrel would probably hold 2 logs, be my guess.
So now comes the real test. We hooked it up to the sawmill, got a log on it, and took a little while to get the saw going and all that good stuff. I'm trying to watch what I'm doing. Every time I do saw with this thing, I have to learn to saw all over again. You got to get used to it. Got to watch what I'm doing with the saw, and I want to watch the vacuum to see if it's working, but it's working fine. I'm tickled to death with it. It's a sawmill, so yeah, there's still sawdust coming off of the blade elsewhere where we can't get to. I'm not at that. If I can catch that much of the sawdust off this thing, I'll be happy. I'm going to take that chute that comes off the sawmill right there. I'm going to turn it upside down. When we finish this thing, the hose is going to be overhead, and I'm going to put a swing arm on it to work to follow the sawmill, and that's how we're going to make it work. But obviously, this is just all temporary, just to see if it'll work. I'm tickled to death right now. You can see the sawdust going through the hose. This thing makes real fine sawdust with the blade I've got on it now. I've actually running a carbide blade. Don't know if that'll, I may change blades from time to time. We'll see what works the best. And I know I've got a water system on this thing. And I realize if I put water with this on this saw, it's probably going to gum this vacuum up. And we'll just have to we'll see what it does. That'll be a trial and error thing. If I use a different blade, I might not have to use so much water. So we'll see. We'll make it work. This is an oak log, red oak log that was cut last year. Storm blew it over. We cut the best part of it off. I decided I could make something out of it, but it's just a year old. But it's oak, and it's still got a lot of water in it, and it is heavy. You can see the way it bounces on that sawmill and hits hard. That sucker is heavy. You could not even move the slabs off the top of it. It's heavy. So there's a good bit of moisture. I didn't check the moisture in the log, and I will, because I'm just right now I'm just turning it into a cant and trying this vacuum out, and we're going to stop with it for now. But and also, you've noticed I'm just plugging and unplugging this thing I'm going to put it on remote, and I guess I'll have the remote right there with me when I start the sawmill. I'll turn the vacuum on, so it won't run. It's running a whole lot more now than it will normally, but it's a learning process for us. But at this stage, I'll say it again, I am tickled to death with the way this thing is working. Just when you try to make something like this and then it works, it just makes you feel good. So I know it's ugly, and we'll make it look pretty good when we get through, when we make it permanent. We just want to see if the darn thing will work. But I am actually tickled to death with the way it's working right now. So we're going to start upgrading on it and making it more of a permanent fixture in this building. We got some more work to do on the building. We're going to change it around a little bit and clean it, get some stuff out of it, and set this thing up on the inside. But there again, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. We'll keep you informed as we go along.